Stranger Things is not just a story about kids, secret experiments, and 80s nostalgia. It is also a true bestiary of terrifying creatures, each one of them coming from the Upside Down, also known as the inverted world or the other side, which is a parallel dimension that mirrors our own. These monsters represent a different kind of fear, mixing the biological, the psychological, and the cosmic. What has made the Duffer Brothers series stand out is how it combines science fiction with horror, taking the universe of Dungeons & Dragons as a reference and adding certain touches that give it a slight Lovecraftian horror feel. This is how they created a universe where darkness, evil, and desolation are the ruling laws. The Upside Down is not just a dark place, it's as if someone took our reality and flipped it inside out. It is not a planet nor a distant fantasy. It's a dystopian version of our world, which seems frozen in time, specifically on November 6, 1983, the day Will Byers disappeared and 11 accidentally opened a doorway between dimensions. This place is an exact copy of Hawkins, but empty, as if life had left long ago. Here, everything is covered by a kind of thick fog and toxic spores that fall like snow. It is also covered by roots that move as if they were breathing, along with a terrifying silence. The same streets, the same houses, the same trees are here, but there is no sunlight, no sound, no life, at least not as we know it. Everything that lives there is connected. That's why in this video, we are going to dive into the heart of the Upside Down, exploring each one of its creatures, from the weakest to the most powerful. We are going to discover what they are and what makes them so dangerous. We will also review their history, their function within that world, and the impact they left on Stranger Things. All of this to understand how big the threat really is, and to get up to date before the imminent premiere of the final season. First of all, we have the most frequently seen creatures in the series. And no, they are not the Demogorgons, but the vines, which are one of the most common organisms in this dimension. At first glance, they look like tree roots or fleshy tentacles, spread across walls and ceilings, but in reality, they are something much more complex. It turns out they work more like a living network, a neurological structure that connects everything inside the Upside Down and keeps it unified. They are sensitive and reactive, especially to fire. They function as an interconnected biological system, capable of transmitting sensations and orders through the Hive Mind. Through them, the Mind Flayer and Vecna control the environment and the creatures living under their influence. When one of these vines is damaged, the entire network reacts, as if the whole system could feel the pain. But unlike the other creatures, the vines do not attack directly. They have no will of their own, nor do they hunt prey, but their role is fundamental. They are responsible for terraforming invaded spaces, turning them into viable ecosystems for the creatures of the other side. Because of this, the vines are the ones that allow the Upside Down to deploy its darkness, where the temperature drops, the air fills with spores, and surfaces become covered with a damp, softly pulsing layer. Little by little, the environment stops belonging to the real world and becomes part of the Upside Down. In a way, the vines are the biological foundation of that entire ecosystem. Without them, the inverted world could not survive nor communicate between dimensions. Its threat does not lie in direct attack, but in expansion. Wherever they grow, the terrain changes. That is what happened beneath the town of Hawkins, when they formed a network of tunnels that ran across the entire city from underground, transforming the soil and the spaces beneath the houses without anyone noticing. When the Hawkins lab team tried to destroy them with fire, they discovered something unexpected. The vines were interconnected with everything that came from the Upside Down, and by burning them, the pain spread across the entire network, affecting even the Mind Flayer. That reaction confirmed that they were not simple plants, but a living nervous extension of the Hive Mind. Therefore, in the balance of the Upside Down, the vines are just as important as any creature. Their presence in the real world is always a warning sign. It indicates that the boundary between dimensions has opened. And being the foundation of the invasion, they do not need to move quickly or attack. They invade patiently, spreading little by little until they cover everything they touch. Continuing with the next creature that inhabits the Upside Down, we find the Demobats. creatures that do not walk or crawl, but fly, dominating the sky and becoming a completely different kind of threat. The Demobats first appeared in the 4th season. These creatures are medium-sized, with thin bodies and moist skin, and their membranous wings allow them to move with great speed. Their mouths are filled with small, sharp teeth, and at the tips of their wings they have claws capable of tearing flesh, while the lower part of their bodies features appendages similar to tentacles. Each one of them has enough strength to take on an adult human, but their true power is revealed when they act in flocks. They always move in coordination, as if they shared a single consciousness, and they fulfill the role of sentinels to protect the hive. They patrol the most important locations in the Upside Down, such as the points where cracks open toward the real world. These creatures do not attack by instinct, but by following a clear objective, maintaining control of the territory, and protecting their ecosystem. When they fly, they do so in sync, surrounding the victim and attacking in an organized manner, with movements that confuse and corner. Their individual threat is moderate. Facing a single Demobat is possible, as long as one acts carefully and avoids attracting the flock. In such a case, the result is extremely dangerous, since their strength multiplies when they attack in unison, coordinating with precision and reacting instantly to any situation that threatens the hive. Besides hunting, they constantly keep watch. Each one transmits information to the rest of the network, detecting changes in the environment, movements, or signs of life that do not belong to the Upside Down. In appearance, they may seem similar to bats, but their origin and function are completely different. They are not independent animals, but physical extensions of the Mind Flayer's hive mind. Another organism that comes from the deepest and darkest parts of the Upside Down, and that represents the most dangerous and terrifying aspects of that world, is the Demogorgon. It is not just another creature, but the result of an organism with a long and precise biological process. The Demogorgon has a life cycle that goes through different stages, each one leaving it stronger and more aggressive than the previous, until it reaches the adult form we all know. Everything begins with the larva, a kind of dark slug that is the most basic form of the Demogorgon, although also the most important. In this stage, the creature lodges itself inside a host, altering its organism from within. That is what happened with Will Byers and Barbara Holland, both infected after being exposed in the Upside Down. The larva does not kill immediately, but it eventually will if its life cycle is completed, since it feeds on the host matter and nutrients, modifying the body and preparing it to release a new creature. This form is not a direct threat, but it is the first step of a biological invasion that begins in silence. When the larva leaves the host, the next phase emerges, the polywog. At this point, the creature is the size of a tadpole, with a soft, translucent body that is very sensitive to heat. The polywog avoids light and seeks humid, dark places to grow. Its behavior is curious and primitive, but still limited. It may seem harmless, as seen with Dark, the specimen Dustin found, and which was the same one Will vomited after being rescued from the Upside Down. Dustin raised it without knowing what it really was. However, behind its almost sympathetic appearance, the instinct of a developing predator is already hidden. As time passes, the polywog grows and sheds its skin. Its body becomes darker and firmer, and its hind legs begin to develop. This stage is known as Frogogorgon. In it, the creature gains agility and strength. Its teeth, although small, can already tear flesh. Its behavior becomes more territorial and aggressive, hunting small animals to feed. Here the change is no longer just physical, as its behavior also shifts, and the hunting instinct begins to dominate it. After another significant mutation, the creature enters a new phase called Catagorgon. At this point, its size is similar to that of a large cat, but its body is much more resistant. Its skin is thick and difficult to pierce, and its mouth opens like a flower composed of petals of flesh and teeth. It is here that the Demogorgon reveals its characteristic facial structure for the first time. The Catagorgon is carnivorous, fast, and extremely lethal for small prey. In this stage, it no longer seeks to simply survive, but to perfect its ability to hunt. The next stage is the Demodog, a more developed and powerful version. Its size is comparable to that of a large dog, and its musculature allows it to bring down an adult human without difficulty. It can run, jump, climb, and dig with ease. Its hardened skin is covered by a viscous layer that makes it resistant even to low and mid-caliber gunfire. But what truly makes Demodogs dangerous is their mental connection. Just like the Demobats, they do not think individually. They are all controlled by the Mind Flayer's Hive Mind. They follow orders, attack in packs, and move as a single entity. In the Hawkins lab, this was demonstrated when a group of them eliminated all the personnel quickly. Only fire was able to stop them. Finally, the creature reaches its complete form, the adult Demogorgon. It measures between 6 to 10 feet in height and combines strength, speed, and an extraordinary level of endurance. Its skin, dark gray in tone, seems capable of withstanding any physical damage. Its mouth, composed of petals filled with teeth, opens in every direction to devour its prey. It does not need eyes since it perceives vibrations, traces of heat, and even signals of blood across dimensions. Some indications suggest that it can exert a certain telekinetic influence over the environment, and it can traverse dimensions once it knows location of one, an ability that reinforces the connection between the Demogorgon and the ecosystem of the Upside Down. In the town of Hawkins during the year 1983, a single Demogorgon was enough to sow chaos. Its ability to hunt, adapt, and endure made it an impossible threat to control. Years later, during the events in Kamchatka, it was confirmed that the Russians had captured an adult Demogorgon, which they pitted against multiple groups of prisoners, and it demonstrated its physical superiority again and again. In the end, not even shooting it point blank with a rifle or burning it with a flamethrower was enough to stop it. It was only defeated when Hopper, in a heroic act, cut off one of its arms and decapitated it with a sword. In many ways, its behavior resembles that of the so-called Hounds of Tendrils, interdimensional creatures created by Frank Belknap Long within the literary universe of H.P. Lovecraft. These entities inhabit outside linear time and manifest through the angles of reality, relentlessly pursuing those who dare to cross the limits of time or dimensions. They are implacable hunters that do not rely on sight or physical smell, but on an extra-dimensional perception that allows them to track any alteration in the fabric of the universe. The Demogorgon shares more similarities with these beings than it seems. It's not just its brute strength or brutal hunting instinct, but the fact that there is a will behind every attack, an impulse that comes from the Upside Down's hive mind. That connection turns it into a living extension of the environment, a predator that acts following a greater purpose. When it appears, reality warps around it. Lights flicker, walls breathe, and the air fills with spores, as if its mere existence distorted the physical laws of the human world. Like the Hounds of Tendrils, the Demogorgon is not limited to a single plane of existence. It moves between dimensions, crossing through walls and surfaces, bursting into our world from the spaces where reality fractures. As usually happens at the beginning of each season of Stranger Things, Hawkins seems to have returned to normal, but in the summer of 1985, only a few minutes into the first episode, the signs that something is still wrong begin to appear. The Russians had opened a new gate, and the terror begins silently, with the manifestation of a part of the Mind Flayer and the rats. In its presence, they suddenly begin to behave strangely. They run to gather together, squeal in desperation, and, without apparent reason, explode. What remains of them is not simple dead flesh, but a thick and sticky substance that moves as if it had a will of its own. That was the first indication that the Upside Down had found a way to infiltrate our world once again. From its dimension, the Mind Flayer controlled everything from a distance, first infecting the residents of Hawkins, especially Billy Hargrove, and using its psychic connection with other possessed humans to direct every step of that process. At this point, the Mind Flayer sought to create a physical body for itself, accumulating more bodies, more tissue, and more life to absorb. With each new organism it incorporated, the creature grew in size and power, restructuring itself into an increasingly complex form. From that fusion of flesh, bones, and the energy of the Upside Down, a new creature was born, later known as the Flesh Spider or the Hospital Monster. Its first appearance was precisely in the Hawkins Hospital, and it is one of the most disturbing moments of the third season. When Tom Holloway and Bruce Lowe, two men under the control of the Mind Flayer, are killed by Nancy and Jonathan, their death was not the end. Their bodies melted and combined after dying, becoming biomass. That viscous and pulsating substance fuses and forms this creature. But what makes it truly terrifying is not its strength, which is comparable to that of an adult Demogorgon, but its origin. As it advances, destroying everything in its path, it makes clear that the Mind Flayer does not simply seek to invade our reality, but to consume all life within it. In the Hawkins Hospital, this creature is not only a new type of threat, but a reminder that the true power of the Upside Down lies in its ability to transform reality and life itself. Over time, the Mind Flayer took that experiment to a much larger scale. The matter from the Upside Down continued to accumulate, absorbing everything it found along the way. The creature grew until it reached gigantic proportions. That evolution reached its highest level during the Battle of Starcourt Mall. There, the flesh spider appeared in its final form, a colossal monster made of flesh and of human and animal bones fused together. Its body moved clumsily with pulses spreading through its entire mass, attacking Eleven and her group in a rather vicious way. During the confrontation, it demonstrated devastating strength. It was capable of crushing cars and destroying walls effortlessly. Only the fireworks managed to injure it or distract it long enough for Eleven to recover her powers. But even with that, the creature proved to be far too strong, and only when Joyce and Hopper succeeded in destroying the machine that kept the new portal open was the creature finally stopped. This is because, by cutting its psychic connection to the true Mind Flayer, the creature could no longer stay alive. But beyond its physical power, the real threat was what it represented. The flesh spider was not just another monster from the Upside Down, it was the confirmation that the Mind Flayer had not given up when the gate was closed, and now it no longer depended on its creatures or on human hosts, since it could build its own form from the living matter it found on Earth. The existence of the flesh spider marked a turning point. It represented the moment when the Upside Down stopped being a distant threat and became something far more tangible. The boundary between dimensions was no longer safe, something that was confirmed and worsened in the final episode of Season 4 with a massive rift opening in Hawkins. Now we arrive at the true force that drove all the terror in the first 3 seasons. The Mind Flayer, or the Flayer, is the colossal entity of the Upside Down. It is apparently a conscious and dominant creature, and is basically the brain that controls every creature, both in Hawkins and in every corner of its dimension. Its form is impressive and terrifying, like a spider made of shadows, mist and lightning, floating over a red sky, surrounded by a storm that never ends. But the most frightening thing is not how it looks, but how it acts, manipulating psychologically and attacking the minds of those who get in its way. In addition, it seeks to completely dominate the emotions and bodies of its victims, turning them into extensions of itself. However, it is not invincible. Damage to its proxy creatures and physical manifestations is transmitted through its hive network and can affect it. Even so, those weaknesses are difficult to exploit because its influence is felt everywhere, even when it does not appear directly. Its intelligence goes beyond simple hunting. The Mind Flayer seeks something much greater, to expand its domain, to erase the boundaries between our world and the Upside Down until both merge into one. Its intelligence is cold and calculating. It is a global threat that breathes through human fear, and its inspiration can be seen in the Mind Flayers from Dungeons & Dragons, in the cosmic horror of H.P. Lovecraft, and in the nightmares of the Mist. Throughout this video, I have presented the Mind Flayer as the main antagonist of the Stranger Things universe, but that is not really the case. The Mind Flayer is actually the form that Henry Creel, later known as Vecna, gave to the particles he found in the Upside Down. You see, before Vecna's arrival in this dimension, after 11 banished him here, the Upside Down did not resemble Hawkins at all. It was a completely desolate dimension, lacking any traits similar to the world we know. Once Vecna arrived, he began shaping this dimension to his will, including the Mind Flayer, which has that form because, when he was Henry Creel, Vecna admired Black Widow spiders and felt a certain kinship with them. But who is Vecna, really? Henry Creel was a child born with a gift that soon became a curse for everyone around him. He could perceive memories, read thoughts, and harm or kill living organisms with his mind. That ability led him to commit the unthinkable. He ended the lives of his own family and then became Brenner's first experiment as Subject 001. Brenner tried to control him with an implant that suppressed his powers, but Henry managed to convince 11 to free him. What followed was a massacre. One killed all the other subjects in the lab before being stopped by 11, who defeated him and banished him to the Upside Down. There, among ashes and corrosive energy, his body was disfigured and his mind fused with the environment. Henry Creel died that day. In his place, Vecna was born. This character is extremely cold and calculating, possessing almost limitless mental powers such as telekinesis, mind control, astral projection, and reality manipulation through the mind. He can access the deepest memories of his victims, reconstruct traumas, and use them against them. In addition, he has the ability to open portals between dimensions by using the energy generated by human pain. Every murder he commits opens a rift between the real world and the Upside Down. His connection to the Hive Mind allows him to feel the pain or destruction of any part of his network and to communicate with his creatures through a psychic link. He can also keep parts of himself alive in other beings, which explains why Will Byers can still sense his presence years after being freed from the Mind Flayer. Something curious is that Vecna does not kill immediately. First, he enters the minds of his victims, usually teenagers marked by trauma or feelings of guilt. He provokes visions, hallucinations, and nightmares in which they relive their worst memories. As the victim sinks into despair, their body in the real world begins to suffer. The bones break, the eyes sink in, and they ultimately die levitating, with the body completely destroyed. This process not only kills the victim, but it has another function. It feeds Vecna's power. Each death strengthens his bond with the Upside Down and opens a new rift between dimensions. In the fourth season, we see him carry out 4 murders, each one synchronized with a temporal pattern and marked by the sound of the Creel House clock, a symbol of time and the inevitability of fate. Inspired by the Vecna from Dungeons & Dragons, this character is the disturbing fusion between the man he once was and the nightmares of the Upside Down. In addition, his threat is not only physical, but also psychological, and once he marks you, it is extremely difficult to escape from him. Together, the Mind Flayer and Vecna are not 2 separate enemies, and together they form the core of the Upside Down and the heart of all the terror in Stranger Things. With the final season approaching, it is inevitable to wonder what else might emerge from the world on the other side. Will we see new creatures we still do not know? The series has always played with the idea of the unexpected. What once seemed impossible ends up becoming part of Vecna's plan. And the new trailer suggests that there is still much left to explore, and that the threat is far from over. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the notification bell to stay up to date with all my new videos. I also want to give a special shout out to the channel members. Thanks to you and all of our viewers, we can keep diving into these kinds of disturbing and thought-provoking stories. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. And if you want to support the channel and get access to exclusive content, early videos, and other perks, I invite you to become a member. Just click the join button below this video. See you in the next one. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed this video, I've got another one I think you'll love. Check it out.